After days of promising a home run, it seems the Ducks have barely pulled off an RBI single. I'll be covering the Mikael Granlund signing and a lot more Ducks news on today's episode of Locked On Anaheim Ducks.
You're Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Anaheim Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome, everydayers. Thank you for making Locked On Anaheim Ducks your first listen every day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. I'm Kyle Carr. I'm a lifelong Anaheim Ducks fan. I've spent multiple years covering collegiate sports, including college hockey. But on every episode of Locked On Anaheim Ducks, we talk about the Anaheim Ducks, and boy, do they have a ton of news this last couple of days that we got to get into, but there's so much to cover. We're not even going to get to all of it today, but there's some big bangers that we need to get under our belt. First off, today, the Ducks announced signing Mikael Granlund in free agency. Again, there was so much talk about all these moves that Anaheim was looking to do, all these big names that they were going to score. And finally, the news comes around. Mikael Granlund gets signed in free agency. And we'll get into the details of that deal later in the show. And of course, we have to talk about John Gibson finally getting the sayonara and headed off to Detroit. We'll break down that trade and what that looks like for Anaheim as well. But first off, after this long weekend, we do need to break into the draft and how things went. The 2025 NHL draft is officially over. Honestly, I feel like the Ducks did a pretty decent job this year, coming away with 10 picks and honestly a pretty good looking group of kids coming towards the Anaheim roster one of these days. A little bit of development going to be needed for most of these guys, but if they do pan out, they will be absolute diamonds in the rough for this team. So excited about that. There is some news that I just want to cover. I'll probably get into this later in the week just with everything that's been going on. But I do need to announce that the Ducks have announced the rest of their coaching staff and the hirings that they made. And the rumors were kind of coming around last week that it sounded like Jay Woodcroft would be announced as an assistant coach. And it's official. It's done. We will have Jay Woodcroft behind the bench in Anaheim. They also hired Ryan McGill and Andrew Brewer to assist Coach Quenneville behind the bench. So some big names. The coaching staff is absolutely stacked right now for Anaheim. So a lot of these young cats that were drafted this weekend have a lot to look forward to. If they can break their way into the Anaheim roster, they'll have some phenomenal coaching out there. I've already watched a couple of the days of the development camp, and they're getting their work handed to them right now. So lots of good things to look forward to out here in Orange County, or Orange Country as they are now calling it these days. But let's get into the draft and how things went. Honestly, I felt like Anaheim could not be outdone this year. It was held up in Los Angeles, and the Ducks were not going to let the bigger city overshadow them. Even though the Kings in LA were the hosts, Anaheim came to steal the show. And it all started with the 10th overall pick of Roger McQueen getting announced by Joshua Jackson and Marguerite Moreau, better known as Charlie Conway and Connie Moreau from the Mighty Ducks trilogy. And not only did they have the two Mighty Ducks stars call the name, they call up Roger McQueen. And guess what song he has played when he gets drafted? That's right. Life is a Highway from Rascal Flatts' from the Cars movie itself. So they're rocking out to Life is a Highway as he goes up. Huge smile on his face. And then the Ducks, they don't even worry about the regular NHL press and media stuff. They have him take his initial pictures. They do the chat over Zoom with the draft room and everything. But right after that, they throw him on a helicopter, get to the top of the building, get on a helicopter, fly him over to Anaheim, unload him over. It must have been Fullerton. I'm trying to think. It had with the traffic around that time. I don't think it was John Wayne. So I think they get him over to Fullerton, shuttle him over to Disneyland. And before they're even halfway done with the actual draft, they have Roger McQueen taking pictures with Donald Duck. And then he heads over to Cars Land. He's taking pictures with the Lightning McQueen, McQueen's biggest fan already. And if that doesn't steal the show as it is, the next day they're doing stuff out on a boat in Newport Harbor with some of the other picks. And then they have them go do a first pitch at the Angels game. And of course, he announces Roger McQueen will be wearing number 95. Ka-chow, my boy. Ka-chow. Lightning is striking out here in Orange Country. But let's look at the rest of the draft and how the results went for them. Honestly, pretty decent names getting called. So I really like the pool that they got to come away with 10 picks after, having so much success in the draft. Definitely some names to keep an eye on. So here are the first 5 that were picked by Anaheim. If you are not watching on the YouTube, I have a graphic showing all of the players drafted. So if you want to get a visual of what these guys look like, go on over to the YouTube and check it out. But with that 10th overall pick, like I just said, Roger McQueen, a center from Brandon Wheat Kings. Very excited to watch him play. Has a lot of stylistic play after Ryan Getzlaf, which McQueen stated himself. And when you do watch his play, it definitely sticks out. That comparison can be made with the different play style and the lankiness that McQueen has. Then looking over at the rest of the pick, just trying to get past all these notes from all the social media hits from McQueen being out there in the throes of Disneyland, having a blast, getting flown on a helicopter. And I cannot stop thinking of Radim Murtka at number 9, going to Buffalo, just looking anything but pleased, going over to Buffalo. So just the difference one pick can make could either land you in Buffalo, New York, or on a helicopter ride to hang out with Donald Duck, Mickey Mouse, and Lightning McQueen. But then looking at the rest of the pick on Saturday, the second round started, and with the 45th pick, Anaheim selected center Eric Nilsson, who will be playing for Michigan State this year. Then with the 60th pick overall, Anaheim selected defenseman Lasse Bulias, who's playing for Sat in the Liga in Finland. If I did not pronounce that right, I am sorry. To all the Finns out there, with the 72nd overall pick, love that number. That's my son's number. Anaheim selected Noah Center. Did I just say enter? Center Noah Reid from the Memorial Cup and the Memorial Cup winning London Knights is where he comes from. With the 101st pick, Anaheim selected defenseman Drew Schock, who will be playing for the University of Michigan. So a little rivalry there within our drafts with our Michigan State and now University of Michigan player. Then quickly with the 104th pick, the Ducks picked Swiss goaltender. This is a hard one for me. Elijah Neuenschwander. So a little goalie prospect, and word on the street, this guy could be the next thing after Dostal. Obviously, goaltenders take a little while to develop, but this could be a steal of a player for the Anaheim Ducks in the near future as he comes up and through the ranks and getting some reps down in the AHL. So look for him to be cracking an NHL roster fairly soon as a goaltender. So looking forward to that there. With the 136th pick, Anaheim selected defenseman Alexis Mathieu. With the 159th pick, the Ducks picked up left winger Emil Guite. both from the QMJHL. And then with the 168th pick, Anaheim selected defenseman Anthony Alain Samaki from the USHL. And the final pick for the Ducks in the 2025 draft was pick number 200. And the Ducks selected right winger Brady Turco, who is Roger McQueen's teammate in Brandon. So little connection there. And he is the youngest player that was drafted and is currently attending the development camp. His birthday is, I think, September 2007. And I don't even really want to talk about what I was doing in September of 2007 because it will age me extremely well. But that is the draft class of 2025 for Anaheim. Some big names. They definitely stole the show with Roger McQueen, and development camp's looking pretty good. I'm going to have a little bit more coverage of that later in the week after watching what these guys have been up to. So kind of get some feedback and things that I've noticed from either their skating or skills and development and everything. So lots to be looked at this week. And as we look into the future, though, we look at this new era coming, and that means that a new era has passed. And that pass is being left behind with the trade of John Gibson. And honestly, the dark days may just be beginning. We thought we had it bad now, but I don't know. We could be heading into a very tumultuous place here in Anaheim, but we'll get to that coming up next. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. I've been using FanDuel here to keep track of things that are going on with baseball. There are so many games, and it's just a quick, easy way to get involved, especially with the Angels being on a bit of a tear lately, kind of some ups and downs there. So it keeps me engaged and keeps me going through that long season of baseball. So if you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, guys. I'm sorry. I was looking forward to having some fun, positive talk this week with everything going on and all of the rumblings and the talks of the big home runs and things that are going to happen, and Verbeek not wanting to move guys for low price points. And first there was the Zegras trade, and you all know how I feel about that. Very, very kind of shocking trade. Some people like it, some people don't. I felt like it was not necessary at the time. Yeah, you get some of the cap away. He gets a new environment, but I felt like all the pieces were there. And at least we had the holding ons too of John Gibson. He would be coming back, working this goalie tandem of Dostal and Gibson. Things were looking a little bright. But nope, that's gone too. Even though Pat Verbeek said there would have to be a absolute game-changing trade. Well, I'm kind of paraphrasing there, but basically said it was going to have to be a absolute banger of a trade to get him to move on from Gibson. And, well, that lasted about 24 hours as he trades John Gibson for Peter Mrazek from Detroit. And he also gets a couple of picks back, a second round pick in the 2027 draft and a fourth round pick in 2026. Like, I don't know. I don't get it. There's the reasoning. You could say it was a dump of the cap from getting away from Gibson's contract. But once you look at what Mrazek's contract is And then later they announced they signed Billy Huso to a contract. You combine those two. Granted, if Huso goes through waivers and ends up being down at San Diego, it's not going to be as big of a hit. But right now, the math adds up to basically the same exact price point that Gibson was at. Now you've got Huso as a third backup. You've got Mrazek here. His numbers aren't that terrible. I think it's going to be a good asset to have behind those stall. Would I would rather have Gibson? Absolutely. Is it the end of an era? Completely. But let's look at the numbers of what Gibson left us with and now what we're getting with Peter Mrazek as Ducks fans. So Gibson leaves the Ducks with 506 games played, 204 wins, 217 losses, 63 overtime losses. His career save percentage, a 910 save percentage. Not bad at all, especially with how much Gibson faced out in Anaheim. And a 289 goals against average. So just under 3 goals a game in his career with Anaheim. So coming back, Mrazek, not bad, especially if he's going to be playing more of a backup role. Gibson still has that ability to go and be a number one guy. That was kind of what this move was for. Verbeek looking out for Gibson in a sense, and to give him this opportunity to be the number one guy out in Detroit. Definitely appreciate Verbeek kind of giving him that option and making sure it was a team that is going to use him as that number one guy. And then coming back, I mean, he comes to Anaheim. This is Mrazek. He comes to Anaheim with 428 games played, 180 wins, 176 losses, and 40 overtime losses, a career save percentage of 906, and a career 2.85 goals against average. So kind of in the similar range as Gibson, not quite there, but it's not a huge drop off. Only a little difference in save percentage, and he actually lets in less goals against out of his 428 games. So fairly similar career lengths as well. And for him to come in, knowing his role being this backup to Dostal, it sounds like he's going to be playing about 30-ish games this season. So not a bad pickup there. Where I get to saying my faith is shaken in Verbeek is just the language that was used, the language that he's been giving fans and that he's been giving reporters, saying that he's not going to move from guys if they don't have the trade value, or if the value's not there. Then he kind of makes the middling trade for Zegras. People are saying that you got to give Ryan Pelling a chance and that he is an upgrade from Isaac Lundestrom, who has moved on to Columbus. So the fourth line center role is going to be filled with Ryan Pelling's bigger body, more aggressive style. And apparently he is actually pretty good at what he does, and it's coming around to his game. So we'll see how that really pans out. But that hit, and then now Gibson gone. Yeah, you kind of get a contract dump, but I feel like this was more Verbeek kind of hooking up a friend in Yzerman. So I don't know. I don't know what to expect out of Verbeek. And not only does he give us this pomp and circumstance about these guys that he's not going to trade, and then turns around and trades them for basically scraps. He talks about he's moving these guys and he's really going after free agency, and he's going to hit the nail on the head, and he's going big, and he's got this open wallet, and he can bring anybody he wants. And we'll get into the free agent signing that occurred here in the next segment. But you look at the RFA pool right now, gives up qualifying offers to 8 out of, I think it was the 11 players. The only ones not to get qualifying offers out of the restricted free agents were Isaac Lundestrom, Brett Leeson, and a third player who I do not have on the top of my head right now, and I do not have in my notes. I'll have to get back to you that later. But those two and the other player not getting qualified offers everyone else has. So that means McTavish and Dostal at least got qualifying offers. but the conversation doesn't seem like it's really moving that fast or forward with these RFAs. And if the contracts were to move out these guys, or the plan was to move out these guys with their contracts so they could really have the money and the space to sign guys, it needs to get rolling. I'm not seeing it. And then to last night at the end of the day, right before free agency opens, you hear the news about Mitch Marner going to Vegas, of all freaking places. Excuse my French there. You got Perry going to LA. All this news starts dropping, and finally the Ducks announced theirs. And it definitely was not the home run that was promised. And it's just looking not good. The offseason had the hopes up here, and now it's going down into the dumpster. It was all silence up until the announcement came that Anaheim signed a player. And I'm telling you, I at least it was a decent at bat with Mikael Granlund. Not a home run, but like I said before, maybe basically got on base, put it into space, got an RBI off of it with Roger McQueen at the beginning of the draft. So not much happening for Verbeek, but we'll get into that right after this. All right. I am not going to lie to you right now. I was honestly really expecting to come into this podcast today. I thought I was going to be sharing the news. I thought I was going to be up there shouting from the rafters. Oh my gosh, Anaheim scores 100-point goal scorer in Mitch Marner, or they've got Nikolai Ehlers or Brock. They had something. They got Sam Bennett. Nope. Brad Marchand. Nope. Aaron Ekblad. Nope. Maybe they got somebody, and nothing. It was silence all morning long. I could just see Elliot Friedman's Twitter and Frank Serve, all the insiders, just contract after contract, announcement after announcement, name after name, and nothing coming out of Anaheim. Nothing. And not only is there nothing coming out of Anaheim, who's just sitting at development camp up in the rafters, hands in his pockets, no phone in sight, just smiling, doing nothing. Pat Verbeek on free agency day, after talking about all these moves he's going to do, all this work he's going to do, and he's just sitting there smiling, hands in his pockets. And if you're a veteran or you're Marine or whatever, you know how aggravating it is when someone just standing around with their hands in their pockets. You don't do it. Get on the phone or something. And then all of a sudden, finally, about 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, after crickets, there's an announcement. The Ducks have signed a player, and that player is Mikael Granlund, or Mikael Granlund. And not what I was expecting. Is it a player that's decent coming back or coming over, because it's not a trade, so there's no one going or whatever, but is it a good player coming? Sure. Is it the replacement of Trevor Zegras that we thought it was going to be? Absolutely not. Is this worth all of the commotion and the talk and everything that's going to come to Anaheim's way? No, not at all. This was not who I was expecting to have come to Anaheim. I mean, definitely not the star I was looking forward to. Thought maybe a Jason Robertson, but that didn't fall through. There's still a chance, I guess, with trades and everything possibly down the road, but not the star I was expecting, and not the all-star player that I was expecting either. Granlund has 13 seasons under his belt in the NHL, has played for multiple teams in the league. Last year, his season was split between San Jose and Dallas. He seemed to have sort of improvement to his 200-foot overall NHL play, in Dallas, but his numbers were a little bit better when he was with San Jose. So kind of some negotiation there. I mean, he's got the opportunity to bring some improvement to the bottom six of the roster. He's pretty an interesting split between his two teams last year. San Jose, 52 games played, 16 goals, 30 assists, 45 points. Then with Dallas, 31 games played. So, yes, he did play 83 games last year, probably the most in the league. 7 goals, 14 assists, and 21 points total. So, just hit the 66 point mark. He would have been at the top of the list for Anaheim in assists and in power play assists if he were to take the numbers from last year and put it against Anaheim's roster last year. So he's going to be an asset for special teams for sure. It does seem like that was Verbeek's kind of tunnel vision target for this offseason, was to really get guys that can help bolster the power play. So now Chris Kreider comes over, Mikael Granlund. You've got Ryan Pelling, who can definitely help with special teams. So that definitely is at least a view of what Pat Verbeek is trying to do with this change in roster. But do I feel like this is the playoff making, playoff run, complete game changing boost of a roster that I was expecting? Absolutely not. I just don't see this roster technically being a better roster than it was last year. It's an older roster, that's for sure. I don't know if Verbeek just has this idea that age equals skill or something, and he really wants to get these 30-something-year-olds playing. I mean, it's basically a high school reunion for me with this roster now. I could probably go hang out with all these guys and basically have the same kind of stories to share when it comes to high school and young adult life, because they're pretty much all the same age as me. And we went, I think, from one of the youngest rosters to probably one of the older rosters at this point. But with Granlund coming over, he's a center as well. So now looking at the center of the lineup, you've got Leo Carlsson, Mason McTavish, Ryan Strome, Mikael Granlund, and Ryan Pelling down the middle. So someone's going to have to push off to the wing. I'm assuming right now it's probably going to be Granlund that's going to be one of the wing players, as he does have that ability to move up and down the roster and kind of slot wherever he needs to go. Or maybe it makes Ryan Strome become a piece for a future trade. This does loosen up the availability for Ryan Strome now that the center is definitely got some depth to it, with the young prospects that are down below trying to come up, and then these new draft picks of centers, now trading and signing centers in free agency. That's definitely taken care of. And I know Verbeek is still targeting a scoring top 6 winger. So does that game plan involve Ryan Strome being traded for one of those players? I still see some talks about Nikolai Ehlers. Apparently that's going to be a couple days, and it's not going to be an immediate answer. They're still working out there, and it seems like every team in the league is affiliated. Anaheim does keep coming up, but don't hold your breath on that, especially with how things have gone so far for Anaheim and the free agency signings. So that's possibly an option, but I really see Verbeek more going towards the trade route right now and trying to get someone over. At this point, I don't know who he's in contact with or what he's got going on. Someone mentioned to me that they're concerned about Pat Verbeek's people skills and whether or not he's got the ability to work a good business deal with some of these other GMs, or if he's got the conversation with these players, because so far it's been 2 years that have kind of been a swing and a miss. I don't want to say, I want to say last year for sure was a swing and a miss, but this year a little bit more of a like I know it's baseball season, and I'm excuse my baseball analogies right now. Been going to a few Angels games, but it wasn't really swing and a miss. It wasn't a strikeout this year, but it wasn't a home run. It wasn't the big rally that Verbeek was boasting and kind of putting in our heads that it was going to be this massive free agency, big offseason. You're going to look at the roster and think, oh my gosh, that's a playoff roster. That has not been the case. It's a roster that can compete. It's a roster that had a base hit or two, or maybe a double, maybe a triple, but it has not been at all the game-changing moves that have been promised. So looking for more action this offseason. If this is going to be it, absolute failure in my eyes for Pat Verbeek. But if there's some stuff that comes around and things roll around, I absolutely want Verbeek to prove me wrong because I want the Ducks to be successful this season. But right now, I don't have that faith. What do you think? Are you feeling the same way? Do you think it's going to come around? Am I just missing something? Please go leave your comments or message me at cartalksports.com/connect. Let me know your questions, your feelings, your rumblings, your praises, whatever it is that you've got going on. Reach out to me. Let me know. And if you're not locked onto the podcast on YouTube yet, please go check it out. And obviously, keep listening wherever you're listening, but go and subscribe to that YouTube and check us out on social. Got a lot of stuff we're covering this week, and you'll get some inside views of development camp out there on Twitter and Instagram and everything as well. So go check it out. And thank you for making Locked On Anaheim Ducks your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NHL podcast. There is no offseason, bringing you the daily league-wide stories that matter most with the local coverage you love from Locked On. Find Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. As always, I'm Kyle Carr. Be good out there.